Good Tuesday afternoon, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to the I Love CVille Show. Thank you kindly for joining us. The Tuesday edition of the I Love CVille Show, brought to you by Skooma Boutique Dispensary in the Charlottesville Downtown Mall. Skooma Boutique Dispensary, the best dispensary in Charlottesville. Family owned and operated, located next to Rapture. Certificates of analyses for everything in the store. Skooma Boutique Dispensary. IMBS Inc., medical billing services, that's absolutely fantastic. IMBS Inc., they know medical billing services inside and out. The founder of the business, Ida, is going to join us on the show, I believe, Thursday. Ida Thornton, same with Carrie Thornton. We're looking forward to having them on the program. We also thank Scott Wagner of Scott Wagner Integrated Medicine, who's got your back. Dr. Wagner's got your back. Scott Wagner of Integrated Medicine for being a part of the program. So much I want to cover today. I'm going to talk, and I've tried to stay away. I've tried of late to stay away from pandemic chitter chatter. You're inundated with COVID. I'm inundated with COVID. The news cycle is monopolized by it. This show and this network is a bit of relief and fresh air from something that we've been dealing with for 2 years this coming March. Still, the new variant, Omicron, is gaining momentum and attention, and I feel compelled to talk on it, discuss it, but I'm going to do it from a micro standpoint, a Main Street standpoint, a small business standpoint, a Charlottesville and Central Virginia standpoint. How it impacts us standpoint here in CVille. I also want to highlight, and I'm going to do it first before Alex Urpí joins us in 9 minutes, CEO of Emergent Financial Services, the Virginia basketball game last night. It was a tough loss, a 1-point loss to Iowa at the John Paul Jones Arena. Iowa came in at 6-0. Iowa shooters all over the floor. They undoubtedly have a pro on the roster in Keegan Murray. First half, not a good showing for the Who's. Second half, as good a basketball as we've seen this basketball team play this year. So how about some positives first for everyone that's watching the program? You had 4 basketball players on Tony's team register double digits in scoring. Jaden Gardner had 18 points and 8 boards. Kie Clark had 15 points and 5 dimes. Reese Beekman, who I thought played incredibly well, awesome all-around game for the attacking point guard who looked aggressive and got in the paint last night. If Beekman can do this team could be fairly special. He had 11 points, 5 dimes, and 4 boards. Tane Murray, the first year, really surprised a lot of people with 14 points, including 4 of 6 from downtown. Yes, he missed the critical one-on-one front end of a free throw that certainly influenced the outcome of the game, but Tane Murray's got upside, and I think we all see it. And then Caden Shedrick had 9 points and 6 rebounds and influenced or altered a lot of shots in the paint, the big man. Look, I'm gonna say this. The game last night, no loss is taken well by a fan base. And I'm not one of those guys that sees a loss as like a turning point or as a point of focus or something that could benefit the team. A loss is a loss. That being said, in the second half, you saw a ball club that started to find some scoring identity. And what we saw last night was a couple of point guards and Clark and Beekman that were attacking the Iowa defense off the dribble, off the bounce, getting to the paint, and either creating for themselves or jump shooters along the perimeter that were left with open jump shots. As Beekman and Clark attacked the rack off the dribble, Iowa's defense collapsed on them, and they had the opportunity to kick out for wide open shots. Jaden Gardner was 2 for 2 from downtown. Wide open three-pointers for Gardner from the wing. You look at Tane Murray, who was 4 of 6 from downtown. Of those 4 three-pointers, all of them, if not 3 of them, were wide open. So I was especially impressed with the point guard play as Clark and Beekman got more aggressive attacking the hoop off the bounce, forcing the defense to collapse around their aggressive attack and opening shots for perimeter players. Now, Armaan Franklin, the team is not going to have long-term success if the best scorer on the team is Armaan Franklin, and he finished with 3 points on 1 of 8 shooting, 0 of 4 from downtown. Armaan Franklin is going to have to be a double-digit scorer each night for the Wahoos to get victories. He is the best scorer on the team. He can do the most off the bounce, and he is the most dynamic scorer on the team, meaning he can score from downtown, the mid-range game, he can get to the hoop, and he can get to the free throw line and finish at a prolific clip. Franklin did not have a great ball game last night, and we lost by a point. The second half showed the promise and the potential the Hoos can offer, and maybe playing a little faster, which is the antithesis of what Tony wants. But maybe playing a little faster could help the Wahoos get some easier buckets, because in the half-court game, sometimes the jump shot goes cold. Sometimes the jump shot goes cold. You got 2 guys on the roster, in Igor Milicic and Tane Murray, two guys from outside the country who have upside. And as Tony Bennett tries to whittle down his rotation and kind of get a feel for the players that are going to play, you know Gardner and Clark and Beekman and Shedrick and Franklin, those 5 are going to get minutes. You know Cafaro, the bruiser, is going to get minutes in the paint. I'd love to see Murray and Milicic play that 7th and 8th role, maybe even the 6th and 7th man role from a minute standpoint. And Tane, if he shoots like that, is going to get quality play. Virginia's next outing is Friday against Pittsburgh in the John Paul Jones Arena to open ACC play, 8 o'clock tip, ACC Network. After the Navy loss, and after the shellacking at the hands of Houston on the road, I was a little nervous about this team. And while the Hoos are 5-3 on the season, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-3 on the year, I see glimmers of upside that have me hopeful. There's no superstar on the team. We don't have a superstar. But what we do have is some balance, especially if Murray and Milicic can play consistent minutes. Now that's the positive. Here's what's concerning that's non-sports related, and we'll talk about this with Alex. And I started the program by saying I tried to offer some, is the word brevity?
Shortness?
I guess that's not what I'm going for. Where you're asked a bit of respite from the pandemic for our viewers and listeners. Where I'm trying not to make it a topic of conversation for the viewers and listeners, because they're already getting so much pandemic chatter from the national media that they tune into this network for a little bit of respite from it.
Yeah, brevity's not the word.
But respite will work.
Yeah.
Thank you. Judah Wickhauer, fantastic director, keeps me on my P's and Q's. I try to offer a bit of respite for you guys, but I feel compelled and somewhat responsible to talk about this Omicron variant that is gaining media momentum, global attention, and starting to shut some things down. Look, let's cut to the chase. It's pretty damn cold outside. In fact, when I woke up this morning, I saw in eastern Albemarle County where I live, the first flakes of snow of the winter season, the fall season here in Central Virginia. Saw snow this morning. Saw it on the rooftops, saw it on the back deck, and saw a couple of flakes falling in the sky. Up early. Our little guy is like a rooster. I mean, you can set his wake up to the same time every day, and we don't even have to wake up with alarms anymore. He came down the stairs today. Second time maybe he's done that since he's been alive. Got out of bed all by himself, walked down the stairs like a big boy, and came into our bedrooms and jumped in bed with Mom and Dad. It was kind of this like glimmer of what's to come, and frankly, I loved it. He gets in the big bed. We got a California King, and he says, "Make a hole for Trey," and we snuggle with him in the morning. It's the best, man. Being a parent is the best most of the time, 90% of the time. So, like the rooster he is, we're up. He wakes us up. I'm like, all right, let's get the day rocking and rolling. I get the robe on, head out to the living room area. I want to see how cold it is. Get the courage and the gumption in the robe. No, what are they called? Slippers? No slippers on, just barefoot. Go on the back deck and see some snowflakes. Reason I bring this up to you, and something I'm going to mention here shortly with our good buddy Alex Urpí, one of the smartest guys I know. Alex, I sincerely mean that. Renaissance man. You got a poet, you got a finance guy, you got a wordsmith, a sports fan. I'll say this, Alex, I think it's fair to characterize you as a foodie, right? Oh, yeah. I would say a foodie, a man who loves sweets as well, religious man, just a all-around good dude. It's getting colder. We're going to be inside more with people. We're going to be spending less time outside. It's a reflection of it being cold. As we spend more time inside with people, as we spend more time potentially dining inside, going to sporting events inside, music venues inside, because it's frigid, sub-freezing temperatures. It happens here. We understand that there is going to be more sickness. It's a reflection of flu in winter season. Omicron, this new variant, why they come up with these ridiculous names is beside me, and a point of discussion for another day, another show. Frankly, no, it's not. We're not even going to dissect the word. We know that this is going to happen. And the new normal that we have in this world, whether it's in Charlottesville or in Albemarle or Central Virginia, whether it's the Commonwealth, the country, and the world, is we have to deal with this. And much like the flu mutates and has different strains of flus, there's going to be different strains of COVID. We have to deal with it. And the shutting down of things, the fear-mongering that happens by national media to drive metrics, the fear-mongering that happens by the 24/7 news networks to drive viewership is just that, fear-mongering. And if it bleeds, it leads. And we know it's a business. So we've got to see through the mumbo-jumbo, and I'm not marginalizing the pandemic by any means, but folks, every quarter, you're going to see a different variant of this thing we call COVID. And the shutting down of things is not going to impact the Fortune 50s, 100s, 200s, 300s, and 500s. It's going to impact the mom and pops, the businesses owned by our friends and family. And I don't want to go through another winter where people are terrified to do things inside. Because McDonald's and Chick-fil-A and Chili's and Applebee's and Outback Steakhouse won't be hurt or impacted. It'll be the locals that we love that will. And what I've done, what my wife done, and I'm not getting political on you, is we've gotten vaccinated and boosted. And we can't wait till our little guy gets the same. And that's going to give us the consumer confidence to continue to patronize the businesses we love on a consistent and daily basis. Because going through another winter cycle, another Q4 into Q1 cycle of doing takeout and delivery or not patronizing at all is just going to be the demise of brands we love. What did we think was going to happen post-Thanksgiving? What do we think is going to happen Hanukkah going into Christmas and New Year's? Travel and family get-togethers galore. Close contact and then back to regular life where conversations and close contact happens with other people. That's what happens. Our new normal is mutations and us managing them, just like we have the flu. That's our new normal. See through the fear-mongering and the if it bleeds, it leads strategy by global and national news. Because the economy, and I'm going to reference this with Alex. Alex, why don't we go in about 60 seconds here, my friend? In fact, if the Antonio Banderas of Finance can join us on set. Okay, there's the Antonio Banderas of Finance right here. You'll see him in a matter of seconds here. We can't go through another fourth quarter and first quarter of the fear keeping us from doing things. Because as I've learned from the Urpí family, brilliant brains, the economy is vulnerable and precarious and far from its 2019 KPIs and performance levels. So we cannot allow a soft, I won't say soft, an uncertain economy to face headwinds at a time, the holiday season, where there should be tailwinds so the mom and pops can stockpile some cash to get through the crappy months, which is the January and Februarys in most businesses. Judah Wickhauer, let's welcome the Antonio Banderas of Finance. First, my friend, good to see you. Good afternoon.
Good to see you too. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving.
Same to you. It was a fantastic Thanksgiving.
Good.
I hope yours was as well. The only thing that was disheartening about Thanksgiving was the Friday after. My old man's a CPA, active investor, the guy that taught us, much like your father with you and your brothers, when we were 10 and 12, we were given the house money and were asked to pick stocks in the newspaper, and we would pick them in the newspaper, and he would track our performance and give us returns from house money or take the money away from our house accounts if the stocks didn't perform well. So we're sitting there on Friday watching the markets go red. And we had
Today
some,
as well.
Yeah, we had green yesterday, red again today. A lot of that tied with Powell and what Powell has said, but most of it tied to Omicron. They found an even more mysterious sounding one. Is this Star Trek?
I didn't even know there was a Greek letter, unless they ran out, because there was an Omega.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if they just ran out of Greek letters and they said what sounds also scary.
Yeah, does that is it phrases?
It's the same as Omega. It's just a different pronunciation of the O.
Okay, can we get that on the? Let's get Judah Wicked. That's why we want Judah to have a microphone.
That is an excellent trivia.
Judah, can we go to the camera? We got a camera for Judah now.
Yeah.
We do.
So we can use that on Today in
We're on
Judah
me.
camera.
So I was curious about that as well, and I looked it up, and it turns out that Omicron is basically Omega, just a different pronunciation in the Greek, and so you've basically got say O and Ah.
Wow.
Judah Wickhauer.
That is some impressive knowledge right there.
So, show is yours, Alex. Take us anywhere you want to go.
Yeah, I mean, really, I agree with pretty much everything. I was listening over there that you were saying, that really this is being driven right now by the fact that bad news sells and panic. Because all we know about this variant is that it appeared in South Africa, that it transmits frequently, and that the cases they have there are mild so far. Those are the only three pieces of information we know. We have no evidence that it's in the United States. I mean, granted, could well be, but we don't know one way or the other. And so this panic that we are seeing just is really
massive sell-offs.
Massive sell-off.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't help that Powell basically in his testimony today said this
worst timing ever for Powell.
I know, worst timing, and he didn't help matters. He basically said, well, this could be really bad news for the economy. This could be really bad for inflation, which you and I are sitting there saying less inflation really is not a major, I mean, I think a lot of people would be glad to hear there may be less inflation. But for the Federal Reserve, apparently that's a bad thing, which we got into last time we talked. And then said, but we're going to keep tapering anyway. So, of course, the market never likes tapering because it's turning off the spigot of free money. So those two things combined, him basically saying with no evidence that this will be bad for the economy, and then saying we're going to keep tapering anyway, has sort of pushed the market back into the red today. I mean, the big people ones hurt travel, retail, and a lot of the pharmaceuticals, because there's questions whether the vaccines, Moderna CEO said they don't know yet whether this vaccine would be effective against this variant. But like you said, I mean, it's funny, we're entering this new normal, but in reality, the solutions to this new normal are really the old normal, which is every time flu season came around, yeah, you got your flu shot, but you knew darn well that the flu shot was not it was not 100% effective against the flu.
Yeah.
Right? You knew darn well that they would change the flu shot every year because there was a new flu variant, multiple.
Right.
There's so many, they have to guess. I mean, I learned over time because through some people that I know that they guess the flu shot. They guess which strains are going to be prevalent and put it in there, because there are so many strains of flu that you can't actually make a flu shot that would cover them all.
Right.
So some years the flu shot works better than others because they're guessing. They're saying, well, this one looks like it might be prevalent this year. So you pick it. So at some point, we have to be able to go back to this. As someone wise that I know, they will remain nameless, said to me, Alex, sooner or later, we're all going to catch COVID.
Yeah.
Because it's not going anywhere.
If we haven't already.
If we haven't already. Like sooner or later, everyone in the world will at some point, maybe this year, maybe you had it last year, maybe you're going to get it next year or 5 years from now. Sooner or later, everyone's going to catch COVID.
So this is what I love about you, is you're a common sense guy. Okay, so someone asked me the other day, which party are you most politically aligned with? Okay, and I thought about it, and my response was the party of common sense.
Yeah.
Okay, that's how I responded, the party of common sense. And I think that's how I'm going to respond now in the future. What political party do you most align with? The party of common sense.
Yeah.
You do as well.
The independent. I always call myself the independent party because I don't like to be told what to think.
Exactly. Okay, so party of independence and common sense.
Yeah.
We're in agreement there. Why? We just went through all this stuff with Delta. Why are we now going through it again? What? Not even 4 months later?
4 or 5 months later.
And it's freaking doing this? Why?
I know, it's just, the market, I think there's a couple things. First off, as you say, the market responds very much to national news, not to local. We've talked about the disconnect between Wall Street and Main Street.
Yeah.
Frequently. So the market responds very much to national news, and this is in the national news big time. Right? Secondly, my concern is Black Friday is always a bit of a tricky one as well, because Black Friday was when this began, this kind of sell-off. And Black Friday is a very light trading day. And what I mean by that is markets close at 1 p.m. on Black Friday, and a lot of people don't go in, a lot of traders don't go into work that day. So one of the things you always have to watch out for is that light trading days, when there's not a lot of volume, there's not a lot of people buying and selling, are susceptible to this. And my concern is maybe this is a little bit of a light market that we're in. And what I mean by light, again, is not too many people participating. And when you don't have a lot of people participating and there's bad news, that means I go to sell and there's no one there to buy.
Sure.
Not because there's no one out there who would like to buy, but there's not
They're
as many
distracted.
people participating. Exactly.
Yeah. We're eating our turkey sandwiches.
Exactly. They're eating the turkey sandwiches, or if you know the market's going to close at 1, do you even bother going in that day? And then, of course, now we're at the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. Things may be still a little slow through the end of the year. And so, like, December is an up month usually because that's when the major ETFs and mutual funds will rebalance. But other than that, let's face it, it's a slow month in terms of volume. And so that leaves you a little more susceptible to things like this. You have this little bit of bad news, a lot of uncertainty, right? You've got vaccine makers saying, "Oh, we don't know what's going to happen." You've got one of the monoclonal antibodies, Regeneron, saying, "Oh, we're not sure if ours is going to be effective," and the market just says, "Oh, maybe I should sell," and there's no one there to buy. Because typically you'd have some people saying, "Hey, bargain. I'm going to go in because things can't possibly be as bad as the news makes it look." But if they're not there, they're not participating right now, or they're thinking about rebalancing and they haven't made their decisions yet, there's no one on the other side to buy, and so the price just plummets.
Alex Urpí, our guest, CEO, Emergent Financial Services. Find them online. Emergent Financial Services, guys. They are absolutely fantastic. Dude, I want to take a localized approach of this. You know, our friends that are in local restaurants, local music venues, local hospitality, local retail. Okay, and you've identified this. They haven't even fully recovered to 2019 levels,
No.
and now
Absolutely.
we're heading into what should be December, the money earning period. Thanksgiving, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Shop Local Saturday, and going into Christmas purchasing and buying and spending time.
Absolutely.
Where our friends and the owners,
People that make this economy hum.
that make Charlottesville hum, we want them stockpiling cash, which helps them get through the doldrums of January and February. This could not come at a worse time.
Yeah, this is very bad news. I mean, already Cyber Monday sales were down year over year for the first time ever.
Right?
And think about that for a moment. That means from 2019 to 2020, Cyber Monday sales went up. From 2020 to 2021, they declined. I think most of that probably has to do with inflation. You have a little less discretionary cash to be spending then, but it's also a big worry. And the sad part is really what's going to, these next few weeks and the health of Main Street is going to depend not on the variant, but on our response to it.
Definitely.
Right? Because the variant is not going to get here in 2 weeks and start wreaking havoc. Right? By the time it begins to arrive and be traceable in any concrete numbers will be a while. By the time the testing begins to pick it up, because these aren't easy to just, it's not like you flip a switch and all the Delta testing now starts testing for this new variant. It takes a while. So the variant is not going to do anything in the next 2 weeks. Our response is what's going to determine this season. Do we panic again and say, well, now I really have to stay up, now I'm just going to distrust the vaccine that I took and the booster that I took and stay home? Or are we going to say, you know what, I have to at some point trust in the efforts that I'm taking to protect myself and go out there and make sure that I'm participating in the local economy and that I'm not letting fear run my life?
Yeah, and look, the closer just put this in the feed. I love you, the closer, Xavier Urpí. Life is to be lived. It is to be lived. I mean, we are supposed to. This is what I'm so terrified of, and I'm most terrified, and Xavier, you can appreciate this. Now, your Bambinos are older, obviously, than mine. I am terrified that we are going to evolve into this species of people that is so fearful of what's outside that we're just going to become these screen dependent. And this is coming someone who's host of a show on screens. On screens. But we're going to be these fearful people that are living a virtual existence in the metaverse.
In the metaverse.
In the metaverse. And we're going to do this for so long in this virtual screen metaverse existence that it's going to become reality. And the reality as we know it, and this is like a science fiction book. It's right up your alley.
People need to watch the movie. Have you ever seen the movie WALL-E?
WALL-E?
From Disney.
No.
So it's a Disney Pixar movie. You need to
Okay.
go watch the WALL-E.
I will watch it. Can I watch it with Trey?
You can watch it with Trey.
Okay.
Yes, no, it's a beautiful little
Okay.
movie. But WALL-E is a sci-fi movie. And the people in WALL-E in the future, they go around on floating lounge chairs in a little bubble. Their heads are in a little bubble screen. And all they do is stare at like the little screen, and they don't move from these floaty chairs. And over years in space and doing nothing, they're like extremely bloated. They're basically almost
they're
like
not exercising.
obese people because they're not exercising. They float around, and they're on a 7-year cruise, right? That is now on its 500th year. So like you sit there and said, I would hate for us to end up. We're going that direction, but I do not want to end us up as WALL-E people. That we sit around all day staring at screens and think and not doing things, not going out into the world and participating as real people. Like, there is a real world out there that the metaverse and the screens and all these other things cannot replicate, right? And that comes from interacting with people. And at some point, let's face it, interacting with people is a risk. Anytime you get into your car to drive downtown, there is a risk.
Get out of bed and put your pants on.
Exactly. There is a risk that you'll be in a fatal car accident. It happens every single day. But it doesn't mean you don't get in your car and go out and do things. And so you have to be willing to take those risks. And it doesn't mean you do stupid stuff, right? It doesn't mean you don't take any steps to protect yourself. It doesn't mean I get in the car and say, hey, I'm going to drive 70 miles an hour today and not put on my seatbelt.
Yeah, you put your seatbelt on.
I put my seatbelt on. I follow the speed limit. But there's still a risk. And at some point, the risk cannot be zero, right? You can't live with eliminating your risk to zero, but as my dad said, at that point, you're not actually living.
Katie Pearl, she's been on Today Mañana.
Yes, she
has.
has.
She's got
Nice.
comments for us.
What do you got for us, Katie?
Katie Pearl, I love your outlook
Her
on
energy.
life. Congratulations, Katie Pearl, and I believe it's number 5 that's on the way, right?
I saw this, yep. A new
fifth-
little pearl.
A new
is there.
pearl on the way. The pearls are proliferating in number and size. She says, Katie Pearl, I seriously love your outlook on life. We have no reason to currently be fearful. Please, please, please let us enjoy this holiday season. If for no other reason than for the sake of the small business owners and most especially for the sake of our children who deserve a normal Christmas season. Yes, Alex, there is a risk in living and it is worth the risk.
Yes, it is. It is. That's what life is, a risk.
That
And
was
you- and
so
you take the
beautiful.
chances.
Go
That is
anywhere you
beautiful.
want on that, Alex.
That's beautifully put, and it is true. I mean, you also have to send the message to the next generation, right? I mean, think about it. I mean, we had my grandparents' generation, your grandparents' generation. I mean, they lived through things that today I feel like we would just like shrivel up.
Mima and
in a little
Poppy
hole.
went from a Cuba that was free to live to one that was taken over by Castro. They lived through that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, my grandparents, of course, lived through that as well. Escaped,
Yeah.
never knowing if they would see
Katie's,
their kids
right?
again. Katie's parents,
Yeah.
same story, right? On my mother's side, I mean, the Italians, the Sicilians, I mean, they lived in such poverty. I mean, hardly any food. My nonna used to tell me about how she remembered when the planes would come over and you have to go hide because the bombs might come, right? And so
That's risk.
That's risk.
Yeah.
That's risk that crossing the street, you'd have a bomb dropped on you.
Yes.
Is risk.
Thank you.
And I feel like we cannot send the message to our next generation that this is the normal way that you're supposed to live. Right? The message needs to be sent that no, you face adversity head on and you go through it. You don't shrink away from it and hide to avoid all risk and bring your risk level down to zero. Because that's what, it's still not zero.
We need to put in perspective for the viewers the vulnerable nature of small business even now. Can you do that for us?
Oh, yes. No, remember, most small businesses, and we can just take restaurants as an example, profit margin is low.
Even
And what
slimmer.
that means, very slim. Restaurant is slimmer than most others even, but any retail small business, profit margin is slim. And what I mean by that, it doesn't mean you don't make money in small business, right? What it means is that the percent you make on each sale is small, which means that how do you survive to pay the gas, to pay the electricity, to pay the rent? You do it by volume. You sell a lot of things where you make a little bit of money on each one. So if you cut out the December sales from a small business, you were taking away volume and you were taking away their ability to put not just food on the table for their kids, but to put the roof over their building.
Yeah.
Where they have their actual business.
Pay their electric bill.
Pay their electric bills. You know, let's face it, there's fixed cost and there's variable. You think about it as a small business, right? Every time a restaurant gives you I'll just use an empanada from our friends at Sombreros. Every time Sombreros gives you an empanada, there's the cost of the materials that went into the empanada, but there's also the cost that's fixed whether they sell that empanada or not. There's the rent. The rent doesn't change. They could sell 100 empanadas in a day, they just sell one empanada in a day. The rent is still there and they have to pay it. So you don't want them selling one empanada because then they're not going to survive. So you need to have small businesses that can thrive with volume. And because their margins are low, they're not making 50% on everything they sell.
Sure, and Katie says this, dare I say Katie Pearl, this is for you, Katie Pearl. Dare I say we have become so afraid of everything in our generation that we don't appreciate the true risk of the generations that came before us. I 100% agree with that.
Amen.
So on that note, let's get the heck out there and love and live the heck out of this holiday season. Katie, yes.
Yes.
Katie Pearl, yes. Vanessa
Yes.
Parco, I love when you watch the program. Vanessa Parco. How about this comment that's come in? Is it presumptuous to think that another round of stimulus is around the corner? I say it's absolutely presumptuous to think that another round of stimulus is on the corner. If hold on, I got to get the pronunciation. Is it Omicron, Judah?
Omicron.
Omicron. If Omicron gains momentum, don't you think it is presumptuous to think another batch of stimulus would come because of it?
You mean presumptuous as in you shouldn't, or it's not unreasonable to think so?
I think it's presumptuous in that it's not likely to come again.
Yeah, it seems to me less likely than last
Than
year.
last year.
Yes.
Right?
Because I think Congress this year, also because of the fact that it's a split Congress, split between
Republicans and Democrats.
Republicans and Democrats, it's 50-50 in the Senate. Congress this year has shown a lot less willingness to spend without question. So I think that seems to me much less likely than it was last year. I would not count on another stimulus, partly because, let's face it, we have not, the word lockdown has not yet been proposed by government again.
Can I ask you a very poignant question? And this is a political question. Is there the political equity or clout to do a lockdown again? I cannot see that possibly happening.
I do not see it happening.
It would be a revolt.
And there are I think there's too much evidence suggesting that the collateral damage from the lockdown
Impacts us.
has been major.
Main Street.
No, it impacts Main Street, impacts not just the economy and how you live, not just our daily lives, but also our
Anxiety.
health. Health, I think, suffered greatly, and I don't think there's the political will, and I don't think there's the public health will to go into another lockdown. And short of lockdown, I don't really see where the impetus would come from to do another round of stimulus.
I agree. Put in perspective how you would characterize the importance of this December versus, say, even December of last year.
Ooh, I think
This one, my standpoint, I'll get out of your way.
More.
It's way more.
I do, because last year there was a very clear understanding that we were in something terrible but temporary. This year, at some point, you need to push past and say, yes, it was temporary. And what I mean by that is not that COVID will not be with us. I mean, COVID's going to be with us to the end of time at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, unless something else replaces it. But in the sense of last year, there was an understanding, right, what we are doing is temporary. This year, at some point, you have to sit there and say, what we are doing must be temporary. In other words, we cannot live this way in perpetuity. At some point, you need to push past. So the economy obviously held on and came back slightly this year. There's a lot more basic economic headwinds this year than there were last year. And what I mean by basic ones, in other words, last year we had not yet begun to see inflation, and we had only just begun to see in December supply chain issues, because there really wasn't enough demand to even notice a supply chain issue. This year, let's face it, there are enough headwinds that we do not need and cannot much afford a very bad December season.
Yeah. CEO, Emergent Financial Services. Find them online. Dudes, these people are people you can trust and count on. Emergent Financial Services. Another thing in Jerome Powell's talk.
What else did he add?
Dude, Powell says, not only does Powell talk about tapering, not only does Powell talk about this damn variant, but Powell is also talking about this guy, Jay Powell. Can you not stagger this and do this in stages? Why do you have to do this all at one time? Jay Powell says this is undoubtedly going to impact the labor force and those willing to come back to fill the many millions of empty jobs we have. To expect a drop in labor.
He says these things with no evidence one way or the other.
Right.
I mean, really, he knows absolutely nothing. And I say this because we all know, I don't mean to say that he alone knows, like none of us knows anything about this.
We can't see into the future, Jerome Powell.
Exactly, but most of us don't have the presumption
to utilize
say
our platforms as Federal Reserve Chairman to say it.
To say these things that he has no evidence of. That's well. Then you want to know why Nicholas is not the biggest.
Oh, I know.
And
your brother is on the feed right now. We love you, Nicholas Urpí. So do you see that?
I do not.
I don't either. How
mean,
could we get worse from a job standpoint?
I mean, not unless some kind of fear factor. I mean, I guess if maybe he's thinking the media and the national media pushes this so much that people get afraid. But the facts on the ground as they are would not justify a labor force decline.
Because you're saying we can't go lower right now.
It can't go much lower. Labor force participation it's definitely, it still has not recovered. In fact, I think it's declined this year. I don't think it has recovered. So unemployment obviously has recovered, but not labor force participation. And those are two key things. So sometimes you just look at unemployment number and you're like, oh, unemployment rate's lower. That's a good thing. Well, not if it's because people are dropping out of the labor force and not even looking for work. Because that can push up the unemployment rate. That can push down the unemployment rate and make things look better, but that's because someone stopped looking.
Yeah.
Which really isn't a success.
No. It just means they're no longer in the workforce.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's hard to see. I mean, labor force participation could decline more. It's not like it's impossible, but it seems to me unlikely given the facts that we now have. I mean, granted, if this gets played up into a total fear factor, then you could, if you can scare enough people, you can keep them home. But it seems to me that there's not enough yet to say that.
So this is what we were talking about, my old man and I, on Black Friday. So he's a CPA and an entrepreneur and loves, finance and investing. So usually the conversation heads to those topics. Okay, naturally. And then my mom and my wife and my son are left like, really? Here we go. And my dad and I are like enjoying. So he goes, perhaps the strategy, Jerry, and he goes, what I have done is taken a larger portion of my portfolio and investing strategy and realized that this is something we're constantly going to have to deal with. So maybe owning the Modernas and the BioNTechs of the world should be prioritized even more.
As like a hedge?
Yeah, as a hedge against the fear-mongering that comes with a pandemic that if it bleeds, it leads. And he says, for every spike or new variant, then you're going to see this hedge gain momentum.
It's interesting.
Is that a strategy?
So I definitely think in a broader picture, right, having healthcare, having biotech in your portfolio as a hedge for future things is a good strategy. It's interesting that I wonder the extent to which, as an example, short term, I question it because, as an example, Moderna and Pfizer and the vaccine makers have not fared well the last few days.
Recently.
But
over the course of 2021.
Correct. Yes. No, they've been on fire in general. What's interesting is every time there's like a bad news about a new variant, right, they drop a little because the immediate concern is, is their vaccine going to work against the new variant? So strangely enough, they're all down today, the major vaccine manufacturers. So on a short term, I think I wouldn't use that as a hedge. Long term, I think he's absolutely right. But now, what percent you put is going to depend on other factors that would lead to that. But long term, let's face it, that's what healthcare, that's what biotechnology is for, right? It's for things that we cannot foresee that we would like to make presumably our health better. And pandemics is certainly one of them. So I think that's a good strategy to have, and I think it does show you, I think he's excellent in this point for this reason. It shows you also the importance of moving past the major headline pharmaceutical companies. Because Pfizer's a big company, but prior to 2020, Moderna was not known as a major pharmaceutical company. Right? The way you would have gone into Moderna is by looking at biotechnology and saying, I need to add to because there is a healthcare sector, right, which is very vast, and it's dominated by your major players. So your Pfizers, your Mercks, as an example, right? And then there's biotechnology, which has its own index on the NASDAQ exchange, which is a subset of healthcare. So if you were in healthcare only, right? You're missing out on a little bit of that extra exposure that you would want. So I think that's where he has a great point, because you do want, as a little bit of a hedge here, some percent of your portfolio, not just as a hedge, but as a great, I would say, hedge and great growth prospect. Some part of your portfolio to be looking into biotechnology as well, and not just your big brand name pharmaceutical companies. Because for every Pfizer and Merck out there that's going to move the needle a little bit, there's going to be a Moderna that you really want to have access to, you really want to be invested in in some percentage if stuff like this happens. Those are the ones that are going to take off.
Alex Urpí, CEO, Emergent Financial Services. We're going to ask him about Today y Mañana, which airs Thursdays at 10:15 a.m. here on the I Love CVille Network. Just a fantastic show. Can't wait to see the closer and the social media ninja on Thursday morning. Close with, and you're so good at it, some poignant perspective on the importance of the next 30 days and change, and the need, or how essential it is for us to live life in a way that is zestful and not fearful.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would echo Katie and also my dad, like, a life that is not lived in that way is not really being lived. It's partly, it's that, and it's also to remember, because this is an altruistic time of year, and we typically think of caring for others as, today's Giving Tuesday, we think of it as supporting nonprofits, we think of it as making a donation to your church, and so forth. But one of the ways you can be altruistic with others is patronizing local small businesses, because those are your neighbors. And so making sure that you don't let your fear keep you from supporting them is a good thing to do. It's not just that you get a gift to give, it's that you're also supporting someone locally so that they can provide for their family. Especially if you've got like a white collar job where you have the luxury of working from home. Not everyone has that luxury. Not everyone is able to work from home. And so going out and supporting them where they are working, even at a minimal risk, is a good thing to do. Taking on risk to help others is not a bad thing to do. It's a good moral thing to do as well. And it's how you live your life. Helping other people, going out there living is a risk. But like Katie said, that's what life is. That's what makes it worth taking. It's a risk worth taking.
Well said. I love this guy. I love this family. I love their outlook. And I find it contagious, and I surround myself intentionally with people like the Urpís, as opposed to intentionally with folks that are fearful of tomorrow, because that's going to rub off on you if you're indoctrinated and brainwashed by fear. And I'm not marginalizing, I don't want you to think I'm marginalizing the pandemic. And as Alex said, you get in the car and you drive the speed limit and you wear your seatbelt and you leave enough distance between the car in front of you to prevent an accident from happening, because that's the safe way to drive and the safe way to live.
Exactly.
And the safe way to drive and live through this pandemic is to follow science and to get vaccinated in your booster shots. And if you feel so inclined, you put the mask on in crowded places, and if you're not feeling so hot, you stay home and you stay away from the people that could potentially catch what you have. That's a safe way to drive through the pandemic, and it's the way we should do it, not the way of living in fear. Mm-hmm. Okay? And to back up what I'm just saying, please look at the data and the impact the pandemic has had on children and on adults that are not autoimmune and compromised. Mm-hmm. Okay? Study the data, please. Close on this as I sprint to a 145, about 15 minutes away with 7 minutes of buffer, which is ironic of what I just said right there about driving. All right, so Alex Urpí, Today y Mañana, my friend.
You'll sprint by running there,
I'll sprint by running to the car, but I will put my seatbelt on and drive the speed limit
there
to get there.
That'll do it. And I'll make this one quick, too. So speaking of going out, we have some great... We're really excited about Thursday, because not only do we have Hope McCutcheon, so she's with CVille Capital Partners. She does talent acquisition. So we're going to talk to her a little bit about... She's
a connected lady.
She's a very connected person. And so we're going to talk to her a little bit about what things that she's seeing, what the talent acquisition process looks like right now, what's the environment she's seeing here. And then, very exciting also, we've got both Ian Blomsty, owner of Vitae Spirits, and Linnea White, the owner of Darling Boutique. They're both going to come on to talk about the First Street Fair, which is happening this Saturday, December 4th. So talking about going out and supporting local businesses, it'll be right here on First Street. So Vitae Spirits and Darling Boutique going to come on the show with Xavier and myself and talk about their businesses, what's going to happen, all the things you can find at the fair. There's going to be food, live music is going to be there. Lily DeRay, we've had on Today Mañana as well, is going to be performing. You're going to be able to shop
Did you help
some
set that
local
up?
brands. No. Lily, I think, also is a big fan of Darling Boutique.
Okay.
As well. So no, I cannot take credit for setting that one up.
Because you know Lily well.
I do know Lily well.
Yeah.
The old friend, a very dear friend.
Yeah.
So it's...
Dude, that's going to be a great show.
Oh, it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be so much fun, and we love talking about joyful things, like adding new people to your business team, and also going out and having a good time on a winter Saturday.
Today y Mañana, approachable, joyful, informative. The Urpís do a heck of a job with that show. Emergent Financial Services guys, find them online and count on them for investment and retirement and wealth building advice. Emergent Financial Services. Tomorrow, former Mayor Dave Norris on the program. We love the 6'6" redhead. He's going to join us in studio. We will tell the story on Thursday of IMBS Inc., a medical billing services company that was started in the basement of the founder's home and is now the top local medical billing services company in Central Virginia with over 24 years of tenure behind it. Just a true American dream right there. Small business is just invigorating. And on Friday, we'll feature a couple of members of Boar's Head who are putting on the Winter Wonder Light Show that had over 3,000 people enjoy the light show in the first weekend. 3,000 people in the first weekend. Alex, you are A+ people.
Same here. I feel the same way. You and Judah, A++.
A++ for Alex Urpí. Judah, the Judah camera seems to be a hit. We're getting feedback on the show that the Judah camera. I think
I'm
the
loving
Judah.
it.
Make sure you use it on Thursday.
I'm going to have to use it on Thursday.
Yeah, we have to make this consistent over here.
We might not have enough room for the mic.
Oh, because we have the guests. That's
we
right.
have the
Okay.
guests.
Well, I'm going to make sure we utilize it on the I Love CVille show. You made it better today. All right, guys. Thank you for joining us. You guys had the best afternoon ever, and we'll see you tomorrow at 12:30 for the I Love CVille show. Take care. Alex, you are awesome.
Oh, same here. Feel the same way.